Hey there, what's up? It's Johnny here, and welcome to another episode of the Three Colors Podcast, the show that's full of landscape and nature photography love. And I'm super excited. We're going to talk about a topic that I'm super pumped about. Something that I've been doing a bit lately is shooting with my new mirrorless camera. And we're going to talk about the pros and cons. And I've got with me today Andrew Whistler, awesome landscape and nature photographer. How are you, buddy?
Doing great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm awesome, man. I'm awesome. You want to tell the folks just your little bio, man, just a bit of background, so if people don't know who you are, buddy.
Yeah. So, well, I'm from the United States, and I live in Pennsylvania. I'm actually a part-time landscape photographer. My day job is I'm a pediatrician. So, and I focus mostly on natural landscapes, although I have done some cityscape landscapes. That's pretty much where I'm coming from.
Yeah, cool, man. Oh, that's awesome. Welcome to the show. Thanks for your time, man. And I think we're going to come at this from really perfect angles because your current setup is you've got a mirrorless camera and you're using an adapter with Canon lenses. Is that right?
That's correct, right? Yeah, and I'm kind of, I think I have my foot is more firmly in the mirrorless camp nowadays, but I was kind of straddling the fence for a while there. So I came from shooting Canon, and I was shooting a Canon 5D Mark III and with Canon lenses, and really wanted to get into some of the sensor goodness that Sony was coming out with, the ability to switch camera bodies, but to still be able to use some of the lenses that I already had allowed me to kind of get my feet wet a little bit, so to speak.
Yeah, man, that's super nice that you can do that. And there's what adapter are you using at the moment? Is it the one you would recommend?
Yeah, actually, I'm using the Metabones. I forget which version, at least version 3 or 4 that I'm using. It's been good. My style of shooting, I mean, as yours is probably for landscape, is mostly on a tripod. It's mostly manual focus. So we're, coming at it from that perspective. The mirrorless system with adapted lenses works great because I'm very rarely using autofocus, and I'm usually in a pretty stable setup. So that's has worked out well for me.
Yeah, it's so nice that you can just buy a body and adapt the lenses. I mean, from my point of view, I've actually made the full switch. So I've got a full Sony kit now, full Sony lenses, which was obviously a very big deal, making the full switch. And I wouldn't recommend everyone just jump in like that. I mean, yeah, I just decided, this was for me. I tested out a few mirrorless cameras early in the year, and it'll probably be about 2 or 3 months now. I've been shooting mirrorless pretty much, exclusively. I'm really enjoying it, man. There's so many positives about making the switch, buddy. And guys, we're going to talk about the pros and cons, and it's solely going to be looking at it from a landscape and nature photography point of view. And the biggest thing, I got to say, mate, I went to Fiji late last year and I had my full Nikon kit, so all my 2.8 lenses and 2 DSLR bodies and all my filming equipment as well. And it almost broke me, mate. Carrying all that gear, I tell you, it almost broke me. It was mate. Even though we didn't do any major hiking, just getting through airports with the equipment and just moving around, it almost killed me, man. And I think that's one thing that I'm really enjoying now is moving to a lighter body anyway. I've got to say the native lenses are fairly equivalent. They're slightly lighter, I would say, in some respects, some lenses. I've got the new 24-70 2.8, the G Master Sony lens, and that thing is an absolute beast. There's no way I'd hike anywhere with that thing in my backpack. It's like way too big. It's like an 82 millimeter front element. It's crazy, but it's really sharp and it's a beautiful lens. I would say it's probably, it sort of almost defeats the purpose, but I've got it because, unfortunately, as part of my day job, I still have to shoot some events and bits and pieces, and it's great for filming too. It's a good focal length, that 24-70, as most people know, it's a bit of a workhorse focal length, so I still needed it, and I needed the 2.8 for the low light stuff. But yeah, it's not something I would recommend people go out and buy and put in their landscape and nature photography kit. But I do enjoy it. The other thing I've got in my kit, mate, is the 16 to 35 f4, and it's beautiful too. I know I've heard people complain about the sharpness of that lens, but I found it great. You know, us landscape agents, we're up around f8 to f16, and mate, that lens has been fine. I'm really, really happy with it. And the final lens I've got in my kit at the moment is my 70 to 200 f4 as well, and that sort of rounds everything out. To be honest, the only thing I'm missing is my macro lens, and it's on the cards for me to purchase. I'm looking at the 90mm Sony macro, and I know recently Verena Patel, she switched over late last year to the Sony system, and she just dropped the 180mm Canon lens, and she's picked up the new 90mm macro, which is really, really cool. I mean, she's lost some millimeters there, and I used to actually, on my Nikon system, buddy, I used to run like a 1.4 converter on my 90mm as well. But what I've played around with, I've actually hired one and had to play with it as well. So what I'm actually playing around is I'm not sure what they call it. It's like the crop. What do they call it in Sony, man? In the body where you drop the sensor down to the crop size. Yeah, it's like APS-C size. I don't call it that. That's the DSLR term, but APS-C size, the 1.5 crop, and I think you still get something like, so you get that 1.5 times factor to your millimeters, which takes your 90mm up to like a 135 or something like that, which gives you that bit more focal length, which is great for macro. When you can get back, and you're still getting something like 24 megapixel stills, man, which is amazing. It's just crazy. Raw files, which is just awesome, dude. So yeah, but that's basically where I'm at with the kit. I've processed a heap of images now. I'm super happy with the dynamic range, and man, there's so many good things about it. But one thing, when you're going to the full frame mirrorless systems anyway, I would say, Andrew, exactly what you've got in the notes here, mate, is the lenses are very similar. So if you're thinking you're going to move to a system and then lose all this weight, which you do, don't get me wrong, my kit has got smaller, thank God, and lighter, but it's not like moving to like a micro 4/3 system or something like that, So just moving to mirrorless isn't going to save you tons and tons of weight. It depends on which mirrorless system you move to. So
right, yeah. I mean, I think this is actually a topic that's received a lot of kind of heated discussion online. People get very emotional about it, but physics are still physics. So if you need a lens for a full frame sensor, there are certain limitations to how small it can be and how light it can be. And I think you do get a lot more savings by going to f4 lenses, which for regardless of which brand lens, which for landscape photography usually works out great. So except for some applications of astrophotography or things where you really need a wide aperture, you're very rarely shooting wide open with those lenses. So there's a lot of pixel peeping and things that go on online, but really as a practical matter, just about all those lenses are really excellent for doing landscape photography. I'm actually using primarily Canon lenses. I have stuck with them so far, mostly because I haven't really noticed a significant, difference in quality. I haven't really noticed any significant quality issues relative to using native lenses. I mean, it's always nice and good to use native lenses, and eventually I probably will switch over. But they've been serving me pretty well with the adapter. So I use the Canon. I'm still using the 17 to 40. I haven't upgraded to the new 16 to 35 f4, although I hear that's a really nice lens. I'm using the Canon 70 to 200 f4 with image stabilization with the adapter, which is an incredible lens. It's been really good, even adapted on the Sony system. I have a few other. I have a Rokinon, the 14 millimeter 2.8 lens that I use for really wide stuff, and all of those work beautifully with the adapter. I also use Canon's 24 tilt shift, which is not a lens that you can get in Sony, and so the ability to adapt it is wonderful. It allows me to still be able to use that lens on a mirrorless body. So that's really a big plus. I think the main difference is that the body is lighter. So if you're going to travel with a backup, and if you're doing any kind of serious landscape work, you really need to travel with have a backup camera at least on the trip with you. It does make that a lot easier. So
yeah, no doubt, man, no doubt. And I think my perfect kit is going to be basically my Sony A7R2, and I'm thinking even just buying the A6300. So it's like the APS-C crop version, the 1.5, a lot smaller body, but still good good as a backup body. I think it's 24 megapixels, and it's yeah. Look, I think it'd be super fine as a backup body. And I actually really like to carry a crop body as a backup body. You know, it's just something I've always done. I've always had, you know, my APS-C size as a backup body, and I think, you know, people tend to write it off and say, oh, you know, I'm going to upgrade to my full frame, and what should I do with my crop? And I'm like, man, keep that crop around, because it's so useful, you know, even for things like your hyperfocal distance. If you've got like your APS-C lens, which is like an 11 to something or a 10 to something, like super wide, man, you can almost be touching the front element on your foreground. It's just, you can focus so close and have everything in focus all the way out. It's just, they are really, really handy to have around. So I think, you know, if I had the money, sure, I'd love to put another A7R2 on my kit. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with having like a lower end crop body in your kit, because, you know, if all goes bad, it's not the end of the world, man. You've still got a camera to shoot, and you've still got something decent. I mean, man, some of the lower end DSLRs that are coming out these days, man, it's just incredible what they can do. You know, I highly recommend if you're going to upgrade, and look, exactly what you've done, Andrew. I think you've got your, which is, you know, more than a crop body, but your 5D Mark III, you still carry that around. Is that right? Is it as sort of for your backup for landscapes? Yeah.
Right. I still have been traveling with that until I get a second mirrorless body to use as a backup. It's a wonderful camera in its own right, but it's you know, and it certainly serves well as a more than adequate for a backup. So.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And actually, you're mentioning like other types of cameras, and I actually spent about 2 months with a Fujifilm X-T1 and the array of lenses that go with that, you know, like something super wide. I can't remember what all the focal lengths were, but I tell you what, the lenses off that system are just beautiful, man. Those lenses are just sharp and clean, and you know, the JPEGs that camera produces are just amazing, you know, with the film simulators. The biggest downside to me was I had been shooting D800s, which are, man, you know what, Andrew, I'm hopeless with the technical stuff. I forget it all, but I think they're like 32 megapixels.
30,
34?
36, I think.
36?
Yeah,
oh, there
36,
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. That's why you're here, mate. You haven't got my back, because
Yeah.
I can't remember things like that. I'm hopeless,
Right.
man. And yeah, I think the XT1 is like 16 from memory, and I did miss the resolution, and I did miss the dynamic range. That was one thing I say. As much as it's a beautiful camera and great, you know, I can see why people use them for like travel photography. You know, super light lenses are beautiful, and they're easy to throw around, and you know, shoot. What am I thinking? Street photography and things like that. But yeah, for me, it just wasn't. I was missing something. I felt like if I'd moved to that camera, I was taking a step back. So, hence making the switch to Sony. So, that's awesome, man. Is there anything you wanted to add about weight, size, anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, you know, again, there are lots of strong opinions either way about it, but I think you do get some weight savings. I think that to me is not the main reason to switch over. That to me wasn't the main draw, but there is some benefit there. Yeah,
definitely, man. And you know, I think about if I wanted to go down to like a really bare bones kit, you know, with like, say I had to, you know, I was hiking for days and I could only carry, you know, maybe 1 or 2 lenses in a body, then I think that's when you start seeing a big difference, you know, because you got the f4 lenses, you know, because I've moved from the 2.8 lenses too, so it's a big difference for me. You got the f4 lenses and you got the smaller body, and I can see that being, you know, I could almost get away with a 90mm macro and my 16 to 35, and I think that would be, you know, and my A7R2 and a small little travel tripod. If I was hiking somewhere and I was really limited on gear, I think I could probably get away with that, you know. Yeah, cool. All right, man, that's awesome. Let's talk about the EVF, and I'll let you take this one, man.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess when we're talking about EVF, we're really kind of talking. It's kind of 2 issues. One is the electronic viewfinder. One is just the live view on the back of the camera. You know, for me, the main thing is that, you know, with a DSLR, live view is kind of like an added-on feature. You know, like it's kind of something that was added on later. And I don't know about you, but for my style of shooting landscape, I'm shooting in live view. You know, at least as far as, you know, focusing and adjusting exposure. You know, I'm on a tripod. I'm using live view probably 95% of the time for 95% of my images. So, I would say that is a couple benefits because the mirrorless camera is essentially designed around live view. I mean, live view is the only way you have to see the image. It really is designed around that, and the live view in many ways is superior to the live view that you get on a DSLR. The biggest thing I think that has really impacted the way that I shoot is to have a live histogram. And with my Canon system, I didn't have that. And with a live histogram, it just changes how you handle bracketing and exposure. It just gives you immediate feedback as to where you are with your exposure. It really has enabled me to capture images with fewer frames, and to know that I got all the dynamic range that I need. So that's really been kind of the biggest factor. Also, the fact that it's because live view is on all the time. When I was using my workflow with the DSLR was that you have to turn live view on, and then you use it, and then if you want to review the images, you have to turn it off, and then you got to review your images. With a mirrorless camera, it's just there all the time. So it just really simplifies the workflow. So.
No, I totally agree, man. That's one thing. I think actually this is the biggest draw card for me in the electric viewfinder, because it's just amazing. I mean, I shoot in live view all the time with my DSLRs. I mean, that's exactly my workflow as well. But there's a few things with the EVF I really like. And if you're out in brighter conditions, you have to shoot and you can't see the back of the screen, you put your eye up to the viewfinder and it's just like looking at a massive live view screen, right in front of your eye. And that's what the electric viewfinder is. It's just amazing. And what I love it for is reviewing images as well. So it's really nice to, you can put your eye up there and press your play button, and you can zoom around. You can see everything. You got that big, beautiful screen like right in front of your face. It's just amazing. And I think the other thing is really nice about the EVF too. If you're learning photography, man, like being able to just look at that screen, even if you don't totally understand a histogram, which you should learn how to. But if you don't, man, you just basically look at the screen and go, oh, okay, is it bright or is it dark? You know what I mean? Like how's the exposure looking? Are things looking sharp? It's really nice and really intuitive way, I reckon, to learn photography, man. You just look at it and go, it looks a bit underexposed, or it looks a bit overexposed, when you're learning. And I think that's a huge thing, with mirrorless cameras. I think that just changes everything. It's not something I hear everyone talk about a lot, but I tell you what, as soon as you put even your DSLR into live view, and you can tell exactly what's going on with your exposure, which is just awesome. It's such great. And like you said, that live histogram is just amazing, man. It just makes it so much easier to make sure you're capturing all that dynamic range with your bracketed images, or getting your exposure spot on in post. I've got to say, with the resolution of the camera I've got at the moment, mate, most of the time, if I'm just shooting directly in the sun, yes, I'm going to bracket. There's no doubt about it. You're not going to capture all that dynamic range. But if you're shooting, maybe a bit away from the sun or whatever, you can get that. If you get your exposure spot on, I tell you, you don't need to worry about, bracketing. I can put it in Lightroom, don't have to merge anything, just open the shadows, pull the highlights a little bit, and I've got a beautifully balanced image, and it's just awesome. So I really love the EVF. I think it's a game changer, man, I reckon.
I mean, when I was, with working with my DSLR, in order to really be able to focus well in live view, I couldn't really get to magnify enough just on its own. So I would use a Hoodman loop and put it against the screen, and then to review images too. You don't have the ability to look in the viewfinder if it's bright outside to review images. So I mean, it just has really simplified the workflow to the extent that I the problem with my Sony camera when I was traveling, and I had to use my 5D to shoot some landscapes, and I found it really hard to go back. So I had to give up that live histogram and the focusing and everything. It was hard for me to step back to that. So it really has changed the way that my workflow and the way that I shoot in a really positive way. So.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned focusing, man. And one thing I'm really enjoying is focus peaking. So basically what focus peaking is, guys, it gives you can choose a color. I prefer red, and what it does, it outlines when you're manually focusing your camera, it sort of gives an outline around areas that are in focus. So it's really, really nice. You put your camera on f16, you want everything in focus, or f11, and then you just move your focus ring until you can see a little bit of red off in the distance and a little bit of red close to the foreground, and your whole scene's pretty much in focus, and it's just I really love it. I'm a big fan of focus peaking. So it's do you use that at all, mate?
I use it some, mostly if I'm shooting handheld. I really like the at least on the Sony system that I'm used to. I really like the magnification is really fantastic. So it allows you to really zoom in close and be able to focus. That for me is kind of my preferred way of focusing. But
Do you put your focus point about a third into your scene and then manual focus, and then is that what's your workflow then to make sure everything's in focus, or do you just move the spot around once you're magnified in, or how do you usually?
yeah, it depends on the image. It depends on what I'm doing. If it's an image that I've determined based on hyperfocal distance is not going to need any focus stacking, then I focus in to usually to the kind of to my hyperfocal distance, which is usually if you focus. This is kind of a separate issue, but kind of the distance from your camera to the nearest object in the frame. If you look at those hyperfocal distance charts, your focus point's usually going to be twice that distance. So if your camera is about 2 feet from the closest thing that you want to be in focus, if you focus about 4 feet from your camera, then everything should be in focus if you're within that range. But yeah, I would zoom in to that point unless I'm doing some kind of focus stacking, and then I can just pick my different focus points. But that's typically how I would approach it, using magnified focus.
Yeah, no, it's nice, man. Totally. So I'm just looking down our list now, and you mentioned something about sensors here. Did you want to speak a little bit about what you want to talk about there?
Well, really my main reason for switching to mirrorless, and the initial reason that I switched was to have access to some newer sensors. So, I was shooting Canon at the time. This was before Canon came out with their high resolution, 5D SR. I really, Sony's been making some fantastic sensors. So, and really Fuji makes some excellent sensors as well. Their sensor technology is pretty cutting edge also with their X-Trans sensors. So the mirrorless system basically allowed me to access those sensors. It was kind of like having a D800E, sensor in a body that I could use my existing lenses on that was lightweight. It was like a win-win for me. So, so that was the main draw for it. And, the companies that are making the mirrorless cameras are still making some of the best sensors, so they're, even going forward, it's a safe bet that they're going to be on the leading edge, at least for a while, with sensor technology. So I think that also is kind of a draw. The benefits of the live view really were kind of an unexpected benefit for me, but those are probably the two main reasons that I've really stuck with it, because those are probably the two best features. So
yeah, for sure, man. I totally agree. And like you just said, I think a lot of Sony sensors are in like other manufacturers' cameras all over the place, man. Sony have just got their finger in the pie everywhere, mate. They're crazy.
They're definitely doing some great stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing, and the technology's moving so fast as well. It's just there's new stuff coming out all the time, and it's really exciting actually to follow it and watch where it's headed. Because the one thing that always changes, the technology of photography changes, mate, but the creativity side and things like that always stay the same, mate. Composition's always the same, but it's it's good. I got to say one thing about I've enjoyed switching to the mirrorless system is just learning something new again. Like it's just I don't know. I've got this thing about pulling yourself out of your comfort zone, and sometimes you can get a bit stagnant with things, and it doesn't have to always be technology, guys. I'm just using this as an example. It can be, you book a trip to a bucket list location that you've gone, and that'll bring back your creativity. But I've got to say, having these new cameras and learning them and watching the YouTube videos and talking to friends, and it's really pushed my creativity forward again, because I've, been shooting day and night and trying to get out and use them as much as possible so I can talk about them with you guys and learn as much as I can. And it's really helping with my creativity, man. And I'm not saying rush out and buy a new camera every few months when you got your creative slump, but it's just something I've found that's really helped me, and being able to put such a beautiful resolution image in Lightroom and edit it up and really have a good look around and just enjoy what the new system is doing for me is really, really funny enough. It's really pushing me forward with my creativity, man, which is just awesome.
Right. Yeah. I mean, completely aside from, individual features and things like that. I mean, the ideal camera is, one that just gets out of the way, like allows you to realize your vision with, with a minimum of interference. I mean, that's really that's the ideal camera. So, I mean, I think this has gotten me closer to that. So,
Funny enough, I've turned a lot of things off. There's a lot of in-camera different things it does. I just turned all those off. Just turn everything off and just I'm gonna choose everything. I've really got back to the basics and just manual everything, and it's been great. I'm really really enjoying it. So man, like you said, that's the pros. That's the biggest reasons for why you and me, and guys, this is just our opinion, just from our experience. Other people may have other opinions and experiences, and you may have too, and I'm sure you're going to let us know in the comments on the blog post, and we'd love to hear from you. But guys, just keep in mind, this is what me and Andrew have found, switching to these systems. So cool, man. So there are a few things that are trade-offs, but I got to say, each one of these things it's not totally hopeless. It's not totally a bad thing. There's always something you can do, So first thing is battery life, man. Well, I got to say the batteries are about half to maybe a third of the size of my old batteries, maybe half. They're about half the size of my old Nikon battery. So that's one thing for sure. You can carry more of them, and I've got into a habit of turning my camera off a lot more, and it's just normally I would probably, if I was going to go take a composition somewhere, I just bumped my microphone, and then walk up the beach, I'd probably just leave my DSLR on, but I'm getting a habit of just switching it off. I can go and shoot a sunset, shoot a sunrise, and one battery is enough, mate. Like I never need to worry about it. People are saying, oh yeah, but the battery life's crap and it doesn't last long. If you're a wedding photographer and you got to shoot 12 hours straight, then yeah, you're going to have to take some batteries with you. But if you're a landscape and nature photographer and you set up in that golden hour morning, like, I barely have to change batteries. I'm saying carry 2 or 3, backup batteries. Of course, we always have to. But I'm really not finding that the big issue that everyone's been jumping up and down about. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I do find the battery life is significantly less than you get with a DSLR. But I think for the landscape photographer, it's I mean, I do find myself having to change batteries during a shoot at times, but I just kind of plan for it now. I know if that battery says it's down to 20%, and the light's starting to get good, I'm gonna just switch it out. So before things start to get moving fast. So I think it's just something you have to factor in. But like you said, they are small and light. And for my Sony system, I think I have like 7 batteries now, so I could go many days without before I've used those all up. So it's a detractor. I mean, battery technology is always improving, and I think batteries are getting small batteries they're developing them with higher capacity, and it's probably a temporary problem. So
yeah, definitely, man. I don't think it's you got to remember it's running the EVF basically all the time, so it's in live view all the time. So I mean, even the fact that it gets the battery life that it does, is pretty awesome, man. So I think they do a pretty good job, especially for the size of the battery. So the other thing that's cool too, you can actually charge these cameras, so you can get like an external battery pack. And you could, say you were going to do like a long time lapse, or say maybe long exposure, maybe time lapse is probably the best example. You would have an external battery, just plug it into USB, and there you go. You're charging your battery while you're on the go, which is, something none of my DSLRs have been able to do.
Right. And I've found that I've been able to shoot like a star trail sequence or, something like that with a single battery. Just have to be sure you put a fresh one in before you start, and it's it's generally worked out okay. So I think it's something that's workable.
Yeah, for sure. Now, focusing is another big thing people have talked about, moving to DSLR, moving to mirrorless from DSLR. And I have to say, with my experience so far, I still think my DSLRs were superior with focusing, particularly in low light. We're talking about autofocus, guys. So autofocusing in low light, and the other thing I've been having trouble with too, and I know it's getting better, like that the A6300, man, with all those focus points and the tracking, the face tracking and stuff like that. I think it's getting better and better all the time, and it's moving fast. So if you were a wildlife photographer, this is probably still not the time to switch, I would say. There's probably 2 reasons for that. One is because focus tracking and focusing probably still isn't there yet. compared to a DSLR, even though a lot of people are doing it. Gordon Lang from, what's his site? But anyway, he shot the Tour de France on a Sony, I think it was on a Sony system, so which is pretty amazing, you know. So there are people out there doing it. There are people, you know, shooting that, you know, that fast action sports or wildlife. But yeah, I think it's still not that time yet. And the other thing I would say too, as far as I'm aware of, big native lenses, you know, like we're talking, you know, 400mm, 600mm lenses, I think are still in the pipeline. I don't think there's a lot of those, even though you can adapt them, like you said. I think that's still an issue as well, as far as I know. I mean, I don't own any lenses like that, and I don't shoot wildlife on a regular. You know, I'm all about the wide open or the macro shots or things like that. So, but I think that's the biggest problems so far. If you're a wildlife photographer or you like to shoot anything fast action, is still that focusing.
Yeah, and I mean, from my perspective, like I'm still using the first generation Sony A7R, and I use Canon lenses. I consider it to be a manual focus only camera. That's kind of my approach to it, and it functions fantastically that way. So, and I think the newer version of the A7R has improved quite a bit. And again, I think those things are only going to get better. But
I mean, it's not an issue for me. I barely ever use autofocus, you know, unless I'm, you know, shooting in a van or something for work, and then I've still got my DSLRs for that. But yeah, for purely landscape nature photography, man, I have no issues with this. And I did set up back button focus the other day on my Sony, and I used it to photograph my son in low light inside, and it was probably 60%, you know, hit rate. So it'd be, but that could be too. I don't know all the settings properly. I'm still learning. You know, there's a lot of different terms in the settings and bits and pieces when it comes to focusing on my new camera. So I'm still learning that as well. But yeah, look, it's not terrible. I would not say it's terrible at all. And I had probably the same sort of feeling with the Fuji when I had it too. You know, like sometimes it would hit and sometimes it wouldn't. You know, so it just depends. But it's only in low light. I tell you what, you put that thing in good light and it focuses just as good any other day. You know, like it's fine. There's no problems at all. So. Cool, man. Did you want to take the next point, man?
Yeah. So I think, you know, I mean, kind of going back to the weight issue, you know, one of the downsides of having a lighter weight system is that you have the potential for movement. It was a concern when the first version of the A7R came out about, you know, camera shake, and you know, you have this lightweight body with a big sensor and a big shutter moving. You can at certain settings end up with issues with longer lenses with camera shake. And the other issue is just, you know, if you have a lighter weight camera, it doesn't stabilize your setup as well. So if you're in wind or you're shooting, you know, with your tripod in moving water, which, you know, as landscape photographers, we love to do that kind of thing. You know, you know, I think a mirrorless camera on a lightweight tripod is probably not quite as stable as a DSLR on the same lightweight tripod, just because you don't have as much weight kind of weighing it down. I mean, it's a little counterintuitive, but I recently added a big, you know, heavy tripod to my setup, mostly for using in kind of challenging situations like shooting in moving water at the ocean, or, you know, shooting in waterfalls and in rivers. The weight savings, you do save some weight with the body, but there's some downsides to it also. You just have to kind of factor that in. So, you know, I have a heavy tripod that I would use in situations where I've encountered a few situations with my lighter tripod where, you know, I was shooting in Death Valley up on a bluff in high wind, even, you know, hanging my bag on the tripod. I just couldn't get it, you know, as stable as the guys I was shooting with who were shooting DSLRs. So there's, you know, I think there's some quote that Ansel Adams made. People love to quote Ansel Adams, but you know, he's is quoted as saying something to the effect that, you know, the ideal tripod is a 1 cubic yard of concrete with a quarter 20 thread in the center. And all tripods are a compromise, but you know, it's just, again, an issue. You just have to factor it in. And just know that, you know, especially when you're shooting a high resolution sensor, you know, a little bit of movement might be visible in your images. So you just have to take a little bit more care to keep things stable. So. Yeah,
it's really true. Actually, that I had that. It's the same scenario just the other day, mate. I hadn't I hadn't really come across it, shooting my heavier DSLR, and you're exactly right. I zoomed in, and there was just a little bit of camera shake there. I'm like, there you go. I never had come across this issue before with this same tripod with my DSLR. It's never been an issue. I mean, there has been times I've had to stabilize the tripod more, and I'm actually a huge fan. There's these things from Sea to Summit, and I'll put all this in the show notes, called dry bags. And what they are, they're meant for rolling up the top and storing things in so they don't get wet, but they're really great for filling. They're really light and compact is one thing. You can stick them in your bag, and there are places where you can't hang your bag off because your bag's going to get wet, obviously. So I'll get these dry bags and fill it full of rocks or dirt or sand, and then just hang it off the hook on my tripod. And it doesn't matter if it gets wet then. It's not a big deal, So that's something I've done for extra stabilization. But I totally come across this issue just the other day, which is it's so ironic that you were talking about it as well, because I hadn't seen camera shake in my images for a long time, man. Maybe back in the day when I wasn't setting my tripod up properly when I was learning or something like that, or I wasn't using my 2-second timer or shutter release, maybe got a bit then. But yeah, it was interesting, it was interesting, just that little bit of water movement on the tripod and a bit of camera shake. So cool, man. Oh, that's awesome, dude. Is there anything else you wanted to add, buddy? I think we've pretty much covered all the main points we wanted to touch on. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I think we covered most of the pros and cons that I've encountered, and I'm sure maybe some of your listeners may have some they may have some other ideas about things to add to the conversation. So like you said, it's this is just two guys' opinions. I think it's it's kind of based on just a kind of practical everyday experience with these types of systems. So.
Yeah, man, it's exciting. I'm excited about the technology and how fast it's moving. And look, and guys, if you are thinking about buying a new camera anytime soon, please take a look at the mirrorless cameras. Don't write them off, because there is so many good things about them. Obviously, there's a couple of things we mentioned that are but they're easily overcome. If you're not a wildlife photographer, or you don't need autofocus in low light, which most of us don't, when we're landscape and nature photographers, man, other than that, really, there's no better time to switch, particularly with the adapters. And I've got a feeling, initially, I didn't keep my Nikon lenses. I was going to go down the same route as you. I was going to keep the Nikon lenses with an adapter, but I think at the time you couldn't autofocus with Nikon. Now, don't hold me to it. I'll have to do some research. But I got a feeling now that they've got a new, Barebone's got a new adapter. Don't hold me to it. Don't hold me to it, guys. But I think I read somewhere the other day, and because I thought to myself, I could have just kept my lenses and upgraded my body, instead of going in feet first. So that was the main reason why I made the full switch. So. But, it's exciting, man. It's moving fast, and thank God you're on the show, because you're my technical backup, Andrew. I need a technical backup.
Well, we all do sometimes. So
yeah, man. I tend to just go with it, man, and be a bit zenny and laid back, and just go out and shoot what I'm feeling, and just need to know, I'm not one of these people who need to know every single function of my camera. I just need to know the ones I need to use, and then I go out and shoot. I'm a bit like Art Wolf. I know he's a bit like that, man. He just cruises out and he knows what he needs to do, and that's it. So it's good. It's good to have you as my backup, brother.
Good to be here.
Yeah, man. Thanks. And hey, guys, we're gonna get Andrew back, and I think what we've decided what we're gonna do, which is really exciting, is we're gonna try some different mirrorless cameras over the next few months, and we'll get Andrew back on the show, and we'll talk about what we found with each system. So I think that's kind of exciting, man. I'm really looking forward to that and having you back regularly, because it's great to talk to you as always, mate.
Cool. Yeah.
Hey, buddy, did you want to send people anywhere to find you on the web?
My website is oneinthetin.com, or if you just look up Andrew Whistler Photography, you'll find me. And that's kind of the main landing space. You can see some of my portfolio there and some other social media and stuff. So
cool, man. Awesome, bro. Thanks for having you on the show. All right, guys, that's it for this week. I hope you enjoyed this. The pros and cons of mirrorless cameras. It's an exciting space, and I can't wait actually to try some of these other systems and tell you all about it. It's going to be so much fun. So if you're on the cusp of buying a new camera, hold on tight, because we've got more of these coming, and they're going to be more specific to different systems. So it's kind of cool. I can't wait. And that's it for this week on the show. Hey guys, by the way, head over to 3colors.co, and I've got some brand new Photoshop luminosity mask actions there for you to download. They're totally free. Go over there and go to the homepage, and you'll see right at the top, pop your email in, and you'll get access to those actions straight away, and you can download them and install them. And the beautiful thing is I'm going to have some tutorials coming your way in your inbox as well on how to use them. So kind of awesome, and I'm excited because I'm finally, getting into the luminosity mask thing. I've been using them for a while, but it's time to tell the world about them, how I feel about them. So it's kind of cool. That's it for the show this week. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll see you next time. This is Johnny out. Peace.